Week number 2 of the NFL season was incredible and many teams looked great, but a handful of teams looked absolutely terrible. So in today's video, we are going to be doing my updated power rankings ahead of week 3 of the 2025 NFL season. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. And we are going to begin with at number 32, the Carolina Panthers. Now for Panthers fans, it hasn't really been a particularly great year so far to start off their season. They had a bad loss in week 1 to the Jaguars. This week, it kind of got out of hand early versus the Arizona Cardinals. But if there's anything that you can hang your hat on this upcoming week, it is that Bryce Young showed a little bit of life towards the back end of this game. They did have the ball late in the game with an opportunity to actually go down and win the game, which is crazy to think about. But ultimately, they did not do so. The final score was 27-22, and we all know what happened in week 1. They got blown out by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Unfortunately for this Panthers team, this defense hasn't taken a big enough step forward. I think they've taken a small step forward, but definitely not a big step forward. But this offense, in a lot of ways, feels just as bad as it has been the past couple years. Right now in the receiving core, you cannot trust Xavier Legette. They haven't been protecting Bryce Young as well as they did last year, which has also affected the rushing attack too. They haven't been able to run the football as efficiently. All in all, if you're a Panthers fan, the start of the season has not been going as you might want it to go. And if they continue down this path, you got to imagine that Dave Canales will end up on the hot seat. Moving over to number 31, I have the Cleveland Browns. Now in back-to-back weeks, they've been going up against the AFC North opponents. In week 1, it was the Cincinnati Bengals. In week 2, it was the Baltimore Ravens. And in both weeks, they actually were able to outgain their opponents. Last week versus Baltimore, 322 total yards compared to 242. And we all know that the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1 put up like 150 total yards on the day. Yet despite that, they're 0-2, and they got beat by the Ravens 41-17. Now, a lot of that is just some craziness that ended up happening towards the back end of the game, but it still ended up the final score. This Browns team is just not good. They're better on the defensive side of things than they are on the offensive side of things. Like, defensively, they can actually stuff the run and make some plays in the secondary. But on the offensive end, they're just kind of inept right now. I think the biggest thing that you want to see moving forward is Quinshon Judkins get going. If they can get the ground game going a little bit, I could see them winning a game here or there. And that's just because I think this defense is pretty good. But so far, it's been pretty damn ugly from this offense. I feel like it's just any week now that we see Dillon Gabriel get a start, which I actually think might jumpstart this offense a little bit. Because while Flacco's a fine quarterback, he's nothing impressive. He doesn't do anything on the field that any other quarterback in the league can do. Yes, he'll make a throw here and there that's impressive, but I mean, he just has no pocket presence at this stage of his career. He has no mobility. His arm strength is very limited. Again, I don't advocate often for a guy to get benched after week 2, and I'm not saying to bench Joe Flacco, but by like week 8, week 7, I would not mind seeing a Dillon Gabriel get the starts. Moving to number 30, I have the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Miami Dolphins did show a little bit of life this past week versus the New England Patriots. They still lost the game, but they went down 12-0 early in the first quarter, and they started to fight their way back into the game. So that did make me put them up one extra spot. They showed a little bit of some grit out there versus a Patriots team that I think is pretty solid. Still, though, this defense, primarily the secondary, is completely terrible. The defensive line has been disappointing. The offense has been abysmal. Tua looked better in week 2 than week 1, but still not playing at a very high level. They can't make any plays off script. They can't make plays on script right now. The vibes are at an all-time low. We talked about it last week. We've talked about it throughout the weeks. They are one of the biggest losers of the season so far. They just can't seem to get their house in order, and changes are going to be happening in Miami here very, very soon. Head coach, quarterback, receivers, all sorts of issues are happening right now that will be fixed in the next couple years, hopefully. Moving to number 29, I have the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Tennessee Titans have been a scrappy bunch to start off the season. It just so happens that they've played two very good teams in the Denver Broncos and the LA Rams, two teams that, spoiler alert, are in my top 15 of my power rankings. However, this team does have some clear flaws on both sides of the field. On the offensive end, they don't really have too many reliable weapons for Cam Ward. I like what I've seen from Alec Ayomaner, and I hope to see a little bit more from him. But they've been a little bit disappointing with Calvin Ridley, and the offensive line has just not been good enough, which has also been a massive disappointment. The good news for the team is that Cam Ward has shown flashes and has made some really nice plays out there on the field. I would say so far that's been the best thing that's happened for this Titans team. They've been losing games, but their quarterback is showing some legitimate life out there. And defensively, they're holding up their end of the deal. Versus the Rams last week, they actually held a lead heading into halftime. So this Titans team is a scrappy bunch. They're going to win some games down the stretch of the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is a team that in the second half maybe finishes with a nearly 500 record in the backstretch of the games. Like, I think in the first 8 games, they're going to really struggle, but in the back 9, I wouldn't be surprised if this team goes like 3-6 or 4-5, and maybe that hurts their draft stock, but it shows some life from this team. So keep an eye on this Titans team. I think they're better than what their record indicates. Moving to number 28, I have the New Orleans Saints. Now, a lot of the conversation I just had about this Tennessee Titans team, you can also say the exact same case for the New Orleans Saints. I have the Saints one step higher than the Tennessee Titans because they've been actually able to keep games close. And in both games, they had the ball late with an opportunity to go down and potentially win or tie the game. This past week versus the 49ers versus Mac Jones-led team, which is crazy to talk about. But I thought we saw some great things from the Saints. The offense showed a little bit of life. The defense made some plays. This is a Saints team that's still clearly several years away from being where they need to be, especially on the offensive end. But I like what I've seen from Spencer Rattler. He looks like a totally capable Gardner Minshew-like quarterback. And I think that's fine for the Saints team. If they have to rock with him for a full year, I don't really feel that bad about it. At least you got to get to witness the experience of Spencer Rattler. And you know, moving forward, that you at least have a very capable backup quarterback. The story now becomes, when does Tyler Shock step up and actually become the starting quarterback for this team? I unfortunately don't really want to see Tyler Shock play because I don't think the offensive line is quite yet there, especially in the interior. I think the weapons are good, but they have some volatility with injuries, of course. And you don't really have much of a ground game besides Alvin Kamara. And defensively, they're good enough to get some stops, but they're nothing incredible. I just don't want to throw Tyler Shock out there into the fire and then completely waste a second-round pick on him because he just doesn't look good. I kind of believe you should at least let Spencer Rattler start for the majority of the season and then give Shock some spot play late versus some winnable matchups. But we'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised if Shock starts a couple games this year, especially towards the middle or back end of the season. Moving to number 27, the New York Jets. Now, after week 1, I was very impressed with this Jets team. I was like, man, they stopped. They got some plays done on defense. They made some plays on offense. Really, the defense was more disappointing than the offense, but the offense made a ton of plays. And then everything that was so good about week 1, it was so bad in week 2. Justin Fields went from a almost career game in week 1 to one of his worst performances of his entire career in week 2. And yes, I get it. You went up against a huge jump in competition, but I mean, look, you just have to be competitive with the Bills, but they were not even competitive. It looked like a terrible game plan, poor execution, fouling, having issues on the offensive line, issues all over the defense. The secondary can't cover. And this was a game where Josh Allen really was not that effective, and they still were able to make plays running the football all over this team. And Josh Allen occasionally having to make a play, and he did so quite often. I mean, this was just a simple beatdown from start to finish. The Jets really had nothing going on the offensive end, and they ended up losing the game 30-10. Last week, I had them a lot higher on my power rankings because I was so impressed with how they performed in week 1 on the offensive end, and I was hoping to see them build off of that success. It didn't happen this week. They looked abysmal. Hopefully next week they can get back to that week 1 status and Fields plays better, although I'm pretty sure he's going to be out with a concussion. But whenever Fields does come back and start games, hopefully this offense starts to pick up because last week was embarrassing. Moving to number 26, I have the Chicago Bears. Now, in 2 weeks, the Chicago Bears have gotten embarrassed in different ways. Last week versus the Detroit Lions, it was a 52-point piece put on their head. That's embarrassing. And in week 1 in your home stadium, you allow JJ McCarthy to look like Tom Brady in the 4th quarter. Now, let's get this clear. On the offensive end, they haven't gotten anything from their rookies. Colston Loveland and Luther Burden have done basically nothing. They don't really have a consistent ground game because I just don't think DeAndre Swift is a great running back. But they have gotten production from Rome Odunze, and I actually feel like Caleb is not playing the worst football. I feel like he's playing decent football out there. It just happens to be that this defense is one of the worst defenses in the NFL all of a sudden. And you take away their top cornerback, who's going to be out for the season, and this Bears defense is going to be throughout the rest of the year simply put one of the worst defenses out there, which is crazy to talk about when like 2 years ago we were talking about this Bears defense being a genuinely good unit, and now they just can't stop anything. They can't stuff the run. They can't do anything against the pass. I mean, they are just a bad defense from top to bottom, and it's one of those things where we thought this team was going to be good because their defense was going to be taking a step forward from where they were late into last year, and we also thought this offense would take a huge step forward. I thought the offense has taken a small step forward, but the defense has taken a massive step back. Moving to number 25, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Jacksonville was really close to being 2-0 to start their season off, but I mean, let's be honest, their 2 games have been against Jake Browning and the Cincinnati Bengals, and my worst team in the NFL in the Carolina Panthers. So I have there's not a lot to talk about here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They managed to lose a game where Jake Browning stepped in there, threw 3 interceptions, and they still won the game. This Jaguars team has issues. Defensively speaking, I think they've taken some steps forward in some ways, but Travis Hunter hasn't really looked comfortable on either side of the field yet. Brian Thomas Jr. does not look like his 2024 version. I think Trevor Lawrence has looked fine, but not great. He doesn't look like a franchise quarterback right now. Offensive line is okay. The running game is fine, especially Etienne's made some plays. Defensively, again, they're making some strides there. I like what I've seen, obviously, in week 1. Week 2, not as much, but they did force some turnovers, so I feel like they've made enough plays. It just happens to be this Jaguars team is not talented enough defensively to hold up an offense that has some flaws. Trevor has to contain the football. He has to be better at not throwing interceptions, though not every pick is on him. There's, 10 other guys on the field. I think this Jaguars team will get better as time goes on, but so far the competition hasn't been particularly good. I want to see this Jaguars team go up against a good team, and then we'll talk about how good or how bad they are. Moving to number 24, I have the New York Giants. This is one of those situations where they lost the game, but I actually feel better about this team after the game than I did before the game. Look, they went up against the Cowboys team that has a legitimately great offense, but defensively the Cowboys suck, so the Giants were able to take advantage of that. Neighbors had a massive game with multiple touchdowns and over, I think, 150 yards. Russell Wilson looked like his Seattle version. Moonballs for day. This guy was impressive, I cannot deny. And Cam Scatterbo has taken over that RB1 role. Not particularly great. This offensive line still isn't very good. And defensively, I thought they would be a little bit better at least at this stage right now. But I think there's some things going in the positive direction here for this team. I don't think they're going to win a lot of games. So I do believe eventually they will continue to fall down my power rankings. But they have a Chiefs team this upcoming week that is kind of faltering right now. Don't be surprised if the Giants keep this one close. I think this Giants team is competitive with a decent roster. So, they were really competitive and probably should have won against the Cowboys. If it wasn't for Brandon Aubrey making multiple plays, kicking the football, they would have beat the Dallas Cowboys in their stadium for the first time in 10 years or so. Moving to number 23, the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, unfortunately for the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow is going to be out for, I think, the next 2 to 3 months. So they're going to fall pretty far in my power rankings these next few weeks. Jake Browning stepped in versus the Jaguars. He threw some interceptions, but he played good enough to ultimately win the game, which is all that matters. They are 2-0, and you got to give them their flowers, but their victories have not been particularly that great. They beat the Browns and they beat the Jaguars. And now moving forward, their schedule gets absolutely brutal for the next 5 to 7 weeks. It gets absolutely miserable. And I don't think this Bengals team is just going to be able to keep up. They're poor defensively. Offensively, they have weapons, but that offensive line is just not good enough to support a backup quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised this Bengals team tries to make a trade for a backup quarterback, like a Jameis Winston, for example, or maybe a Gardner Minshew or somebody along those lines, because right now I just don't think Jake Browning is good enough. At least those quarterbacks give you a chance, I feel like, but we'll wait and see. Jamar Chase had a great game versus Jacksonville. He's going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting these next few weeks. The goal for them is just to get to around 500 by December. And if they can do so, maybe Burrow comes back and he can do some late heroics late in the season. But I don't know. I'm not feeling good about Cincinnati. Which, by the way, last little note here, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for the Bengals to just shut down Burrow for the rest of the season and fully tank for next year to pick up a Caleb Downs or somebody like that in next year's draft. Just a side note. Moving over to number 22, I have the New England Patriots. Now, New England showed some real improvement last week versus the Miami Dolphins, but it was against the Miami Dolphins, who have one of the worst defenses out there. Drake May, I thought, had a great game. Efficient, no turnovers. I thought he played clean football. Again, it's versus the Dolphins defense. So how much can you take from that? I don't know. In week 1, they went up against the Raiders and they showed their flaws on both sides of the field. I thought Brock Bowers had a great game. Geno made some plays, but the defense for the Raiders made some stops too. So the Patriots, struggled in week 1. It was not pretty, but they showed some serious improvements in week 2. And I think moving forward, you can build off this game. This is a team that is, quote unquote, figuring it out. They're not there yet. They have time to build and continue to retool their roster. They're not close to the team they're going to be by the end of the season. So to any Patriots fan that is concerned about their season, look, I think they were a little bit overrated heading into the year. I think they got a big win in week 2, and they're going to build off of it, and they're going to be a better team by the end of the season than what they started off with. And by 2026 or 2027, this team might actually be like legitimate playoff contenders. So this year is a building year. This is a nice win for them as they're continuing to build. I think next year is really the year that we should be talking about the Patriots in the same conversation as the playoffs. Moving to number 21, the Las Vegas Raiders. A lot to talk about here with the Raiders. Week 1, you get the nice win versus the Patriots, but in week 2, they did not show up versus the LA Chargers. Their defense did. Their defense actually did a fine job. They held the Chargers to only 20 points, only 317 total yards. They stuffed the run very well, but the passing attack on the offensive end, dismal. I mean, they could not get anything going down the field. I think 3 interceptions for Geno Smith. They also can't run the football to save their life. Like, Gentry is a great running back prospect, but that offensive line is just getting killed over and over again. And yes, they went up against the Chargers, who have an excellent defense, but I mean, still, can you get anything going? They didn't even have Khalil Mack for most of the game. They couldn't run the football at all. This offensive line stinks. I like what they have in their weapons. Brock Bowers, who is kind of banged up. We'll see if he's able to go the rest of the way here. But you got him. You got Gentry, who I like a lot. Jack Besh is a nice player too. Thornton has looked pretty solid so far. Jacoby Myers, like, I actually like the Raiders' weapons, but their lines, especially the offensive line, is just not good enough. Defensively, they're showing a little bit of life, which is a good sign, but they need to get better on the offensive line if they want to have any sort of success the rest of the way. Moving to number 20, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys did pick up a massive victory in week 2, an overtime game versus the New York Giants, who, by the way, I think the New York Giants are a pretty scrappy bunch, so I don't think it's that bad of a game to go to overtime versus a really scrappy Giants team. Look, this is really simple for the Cowboys. Great offense, bad defense. It's just that simple. I was hoping this defense would take a step forward with Matt Eberflus. They have not done so. Yes, they're a little bit banged up in the secondary. They have some guys missing here and there, but they don't have a pass rush right now. Of course, you get rid of Micah Parsons, and they're relying on a bunch of edge rushers who are, for the most part, pretty unproven. Sam Williams, Nealand, and Donovan Ezeraku. In the interior, they have Osa and they have Kenny Clark, which is a big-time upgrade from last year, but they just don't have the pass rushers. Linebackers, you're waiting on DeMarvion Overshown to come back. And the secondary got absolutely killed by Malik Neighbors. Khair Elam was abysmal. Trevon Diggs was horrific. And the safeties played a pretty piss-poor game themselves, too. I feel like the Cowboys, who just paid Deron Bland, have to rebuild their entire secondary this offseason. Like, I'm talking 2 new safeties, get rid of Trevon Diggs, Deron Bland on one side, and a rookie or somebody on the other side. They got to retool the secondary because it's straight up not good. But on the offensive end, they're so damn good with Pickens, Dak, and CD, and the run game has been really good so far that they can kind of get away with a bad defense. This Cowboys team will be scrappy. They will put up a lot of points, but they're going to have a hard time beating any of the top tier teams just because this defense can't get any stops. Moving to number 19, I have the Houston Texans. We want to talk about the polar opposites of the Dallas Cowboys. The Houston Texans might be it. An offense that, simply put, stinks right now, with the defense that, simply put, is pretty damn good. I mean, let's talk about the offense. This offensive line is abysmal. They cannot run the football at all. CJ Stroud is running for his life. I know there's going to be a lot of people that clown on Stroud, like, oh, Stroud is a rookie merchant. He hasn't been good since his rookie season. The guy can't sit in the pocket for 2 seconds because the second he does that, he gets sacked or he has to roll out because there's pressure in his face. I mean, it's just not fair to talk about. They're so one-dimensional on offense. They can't run the football, and they have no offensive linemen that you feel great about. Like, this is a terrible situation for this Texans offense. Defensively, they're really good. They are a really good unit. They can get after the quarterback. They can stuff the run. They're excellent in coverage. They can force turnovers. Like, this is an excellent defense, a Super Bowl caliber defense. This offense and this offensive line is just not good enough. They're not even close to being good enough. This is a bottom 10 offense in the league right now. And unless Stroud can do some magic, I don't see this team really making it that far. They're 0-2, and the Colts are 2-0, which we'll talk about them here in a minute. I'm a little bit worried for the Texans on whether or not they can actually win the division, which is kind of crazy to say because they've won the division for the past few years, and right now they're 0-2, and they're not looking very good right now. So I'm concerned about this Texans team. I hope they take some steps forward on the offensive end because this defense deserves it. This defense is incredible. Moving to number 18, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I talked about it in my power rankings for week 1. I was worried after after that New York Jets game. And I got some flack on Twitter and on my YouTube as well in comments about me having some concerns about the Steelers team. Everyone said, oh, week 1, the Steelers defense, it was just a fluke performance. They'll play better in future weeks. Well, here we are in week 2 versus a Seahawks team that was abysmal on offense in week 1. And on week 2, the Seahawks team scored 31 points. Yes, there was the fumble, weird special teams thing that happened, but still, almost 400 total yards, 6 of 14 on third down. I mean, they held the time possession for 31 minutes, and this is with. But I did say that I thought the Steelers team was going to be fine because the defense was going to get them into the playoffs, and with some general improvements on the offense, they were going to be a better team. But through 2 weeks, this defense does not look great at all. Like, they just don't look very good. They made Justin Fields look really good. Still early in the season. There's a lot more games to be played. This defense will hopefully get better because they need them to. Right now, I'm a little bit worried about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Moving to number 17, I have the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I really wanted to move Seattle a little bit up the board here, but I just couldn't justify doing so. Look, yes, they beat the Steelers by double digits, but there was a crazy special teams play that allowed them to go up multiple scores. I mean, you take away the 7 points from that, they only win 24-17. You do have to give it to him, though. I liked what I saw on the offensive end. Kenneth Walker made some big splash plays. JSN is becoming an awesome wide receiver 1, and Cooper Kupp actually showed a little bit of life. But I cannot not overlook that week 1 performance where this offense was just not good at all. The Steelers defense has not been incredibly impressive so far, so I don't really know what to take away from the Seahawks team right now. I thought Darnold played better, but the turnovers have to be cleaned up. But I do like what I've seen from the defense. So for the Seattle team, I just don't know how I feel about them yet. They get the win, but they also lost in week 1. They're 1-1 on the season. They looked better in week 2. Let's see if they can build on it in week 3. And I think these next 3 weeks, we're going to know a lot about the Seahawks team. Moving to number 16, I have the Minnesota Vikings. Now, in week 1, we got the ultimate high of this crazy comeback from JJ McCarthy and Justin Jefferson. And then in week 2, we got the ultimate low of, man, this offense just simply is not good right now. Their EPA per play is just simply abysmal. This Vikings team does not have a good offense. McCarthy is going to be missing a couple weeks, I believe, with some sort of injury, which honestly might not be the worst thing in the world. I think he needs to take a bit of a step back because, let's be honest, you take away like 1.5 quarters, JJ McCarthy has not looked very good at all. He was bad versus Atlanta. Granted, no Christian Darrisaw, which I think is a huge loss without him on the field because their tackle situation is not good if he's not out there on the field. Still, though, McCarthy has not looked good. The defense has looked fine. They made life hard for Michael Penix, but they couldn't stop Bijan Robinson, which is, nobody can really stop Bijan. I mean, unless you're a really good defense. But Minnesota made some plays out there to keep them in the game, but the offense just did not have the juice. The defense gave up some points here and there, and the offense just could not respond. So I'm not worried about Minnesota because I think they're very talented, but it's a weird situation where the team is ready to go all in, but the quarterback needs time to develop. So it's kind of a weird spot here. Moving to number 15, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Arizona hasn't really proven themselves really at all. Their 2 victories are against the Panthers and the New Orleans Saints, and in both games we haven't really seen any huge improvements from this team besides the defense. I think the defense has taken some steps forward. Will Johnson has been really good, but the offense, I mean, they've been fine. They've made some plays. They had a big lead in like the first half versus the Carolina Panthers. Then they kind of took their foot off the gas versus the Panthers late into the 4th quarter. So that is a bit concerning. We haven't really seen them go up against good competition yet, so I don't know if they're just sleepwalking through these games. Let's wait and see until they go up against a good team, and then we can properly judge the Cardinals. Moving to number 14, we have the Atlanta Falcons. So the Atlanta Falcons have shown me a lot of positive things throughout these past 2 weeks in a multitude of ways. In week 1, it was Michael Penix Jr. having a really solid performance, and in week 2, it was Bijan Robinson and this excellent defense. They've went up and competed against high-level competition in both weeks against the Minnesota Vikings and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and have showed glimpses on both sides of the field. I feel really positive about this Falcons team moving forward. I don't know if they'll win the division, but I think they're going to be a really good team this year. Moving to number 13, I have the San Francisco 49ers. Now, unfortunately for this team, they're completely banged up. Brock Purdy missed this past week, but even without him, they had an easy win against the New Orleans Saints. Mac Jones played his heart out. Shout out to him. He had a really good week this week. But as we move forward, the competition will get harder, and it's going to be really difficult for this Niners team to manage to win games if they do not have their main star players. Now, hopefully Purdy can come back this upcoming week, because if he can, then obviously that changes my thoughts on this Niners team moving forward. But they got to get Kittle healthy, Ayuk healthy, and all those other guys going. A fully healthy Niners team is a good team, but not a great team. I think they'll be a good team this year, but I don't think they're going to be any sort of serious threat if they were to make the playoffs. Moving forward to number 12, I have the Washington Commanders. I would say so far this year, it's been kind of a weird start for the Commanders. They had a week 1 victory versus the Giants where they played for the most part pretty fine, but even themselves, they would say that their offensive performance left a little bit to be desired. But in week 2 versus the Green Bay Packers, I mean, they kind of got destroyed by a very good Packers team. I've been saying the entire offseason that I was not a huge fan of what this Commanders team did this offseason. They feel kind of old. They feel like they're a bit lackluster outside of Jaden Daniels. I mean, you have Terry McLaurin, but he hasn't been particularly that great this year. Their rushing attack is not very good outside of Daniels. And now without Austin Eckler as your running back, you're looking at Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who is your RB1 now. And look, he's been fine when given opportunities, but I don't necessarily think he's this game changer or anything like that. I just feel like the offense is pretty lackluster surrounding Jaden Daniels, and the same thing is also kind of true about the defense. I don't know if they have a go-to pass rusher, nor do I think their secondary is all that great right now, especially Marshawn Lattimore, who hasn't been, I guess, special. Now, they do have options there with Trey Amos, who I think will get more time and more reps on the field, but I don't know. This Commanders team just feels a little bit lackluster right now. Moving to number 11, and shockingly outside my top 10, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this one might be a little bit unfair because this Chiefs team is very much not the Chiefs team that we're going to see later in the season. No Rice, no Worthy. This passing attack has just not been good, but I actually have some fundamental concerns with this team outside of that. I think their rushing attack is just terrible right now. Pacheco's not good. Kareem Hunt's not good. Rashard Smith maybe could be their solution, but they just don't have an RB1 that I feel particularly good about. Mahomes is their leading rusher so far this year. And defensively speaking, I mean, outside of Karlaftis and Chris Jones, what are you getting from your pass rushers? I just feel like right now they're pretty lackluster in a lot of different positions. And against a high-level passing attack like Justin Herbert and the Chargers, this secondary kind of got exposed in some ways. Now, last week versus the Eagles don't have a vertical passing attack right now, so they didn't really get affected too much. But the Eagles offense still found ways to put up points. This Chiefs team will be fine. They will make the playoffs. They're going to be a good team this year. I just kind of worried that these issues are going to handicap them from being any sort of serious title contender. Moving to number 10, I have the Denver Broncos. Now, kind of lackluster in some ways too. The Denver Broncos have been kind of lackluster, especially on the offensive end, but even defensively last week versus the Indianapolis Colts, a game in which they probably should have won if it wasn't for some special team shenanigans with the kick. But defensively, they did give up like 400 total yards on the day versus Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts. Week 1, they were pretty good, but Tennessee did have some success offensively. The offense with Bo Nix hasn't been particularly great either, so I'm a little bit concerned about this Broncos team. Not saying they're a bad team right now, but this defense hasn't been as good as I thought it was going to be, and offensively, they have taken what feels like maybe a bit of a small step back. Now, maybe they can make some adjustments and play better down the road. I totally think that's totally a possibility, but as of right now, they have not looked particularly great yet. Moving to number 9, I have the Indianapolis Colts. One of the biggest surprises of the season so far in a positive way, the Indianapolis Colts look like one of the best teams in the entire NFL. On the offensive end, Daniel Jones is playing some excellent football. He's not turning the football over. He's playing on time, precise. He looks like a perfect fit for Shane Steichen. The weapons are really good. The rushing attack has been great. The offensive line looks incredible. And defensively, they can force some turnovers. They can get stops. They can make some plays on the football. This is a really impressive Colts team, and Shane Steichen is proving that he's a good dang head coach right now. So it's only 2 weeks. I don't want to overreact, but through 2 weeks, this is one of my biggest winners of the year so far. They look really good. Let's see if they can keep it up. Let's not forget the New Orleans Saints last year, who went 2-0, shocked the world, and then finished the season drafting Kelvin Banks in the top 10. So let's keep an eye on that one, but I do think the Colts look pretty good so far, so thumbs up for them. Moving to number 8, I have the Detroit Lions. It is going to be very difficult to get that week 1 stinker out of my head. Fortunately for them, they do have a matchup versus Baltimore in week 3 that will prove whether or not week 1 was a fluke or if week 2 was more of who this Lions team is. We kind of saw polar opposites. Week 1, the offense was kind of lackluster, couldn't really get anything going downfield, and the defense gave up a bunch of points to Jordan Love and the Packers. But then in week 2, the Lions showed up and dropped 52 points on the Chicago Bears. So week 3 will be a really good tell for us. I'm banking on this Lions team still being a really good team. I think they have a lot to prove still because week 1 was just that bad of a performance, but week 2 did make me feel quite better about this team. So moving forward, they have a good test in week 3. We'll see if they can respond and play some better football. Obviously, week 2 was impressive, but week 1 was not. So we'll keep an eye on this Lions team. I think they're a good team. I still believe in their head coach. I still believe in their roster and the construction of it. I just want to see them play a higher level competition like a Baltimore and see if they can play them better than what they did in week 1 versus the Green Bay Packers. Moving over to number 7, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the Buccaneers have started their season off 2-0 with 2 somewhat quality wins versus the Atlanta Falcons and the Houston Texans. I say somewhat because they haven't gone up against a Philadelphia or Kansas City or an LA or any of those teams quite yet. They've been beating some, I guess, like tier 3 teams in the NFL. Regardless, though, these are quality wins. These are teams that will probably end up being above 500. And this team has done a really good job of just handling their business. They've played well on both sides of the field, and they've been doing so with their 2 offensive tackles. I mean, in recent weeks, not being there. Tristan Wirfs not being there for weeks 1 and 2, and Guteke being out for most of the game against Houston. Hopefully, those guys can return at some point, because I do believe those are huge parts of this offense. They got to get those guys back eventually. But defensively, I've liked what I've seen from the secondary. I've liked what I've seen from the defensive line. I have no complaints. Baker Mayfield's playing good football. This Bucs team looks pretty dang good, kind of like what they've done the past couple years. Moving to number 6, I have the LA Rams. Now, kind of like a couple other teams, so far the Rams haven't particularly blown me away. They haven't really had a serious competition yet. They went up against Tennessee last week, and in the previous week, they did go up against the Houston Texans, but the Houston Texans don't look as good as maybe what they once did. In both the games, I thought the offense, it took them a little bit to get going, but they did get going. Puka, Devontae Adams, those guys look incredible. Pair that with Kyron Williams and Stafford, who I think is playing at a pretty high level. Defensively, they're making plays. They're getting stops. The secondary looks pretty good. Cam Ward made some plays because Cam Ward's a special talent, so you kind of just sort of have to give him a thumbs up and say good job. This Rams team hasn't been seriously tested fully to the max yet. This upcoming week, though, they will. They have Philadelphia. If they win that game, they will skyrocket up my chart here. Moving to number 5, I have the LA Chargers. Now, in week 1, they had the huge win versus the Kansas City Chiefs, a divisional game that was very important. Then in week 2, another divisional matchup versus the Raiders, and they handled their business. In both weeks, the defense has looked, in my opinion, probably like one of, if not the best defenses in the entire NFL. And even though in week 2, I thought the offense for LA maybe was not as good as it was in week 1, they still played pretty well. Quentin Johnston made a big play downfield. Keenan Allen continues to be a safety blanket. I am a little bit worried about this rushing attack because Amari Hampton hasn't looked great yet, but I do think Najee will get more integrated, and as this team continues to go, I think the rushing attack will be better because so far it hasn't been particularly great. Still though, Herbert's playing at a very high level. This defense is incredible. This Chargers team looks very good. Moving to number 4, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles are 2-0. They've beaten the Dallas Cowboys, and they just beat the Kansas City Chiefs. But in both games, I came away just feeling like I was missing something from this team. On the defensive side of things, I think they're taking a small step back, which is to sort of be expected when you lose all those guys in free agency. Andrew Makuba, Jahad Campbell, those guys have played exceptionally well, but still, this defense, in my opinion, has taken a small step back. They just don't have the variety of pass rushers like they did last year, and secondary opposite of Quinyon Mitchell in the cornerback room is a bit concerning. My big concern is with this offense, though. They just don't look explosive right now. You have Saquon, you have Jalen, you have the annoying-ass tush push, which they always cheat on, but that's neither here nor there. But they don't really have much of a vertical passing attack right now. I think Hurts has maybe thrown, 5 passes beyond 10 yards. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it feels like it's been the case. A lot of what Jalen Hurts has been doing is handing the ball off, running the football, quick RPOs, like really quick screens and dump offs, which is winning them games. But I feel like when they start going up against higher level offenses, that's going to kind of start to hurt them a little bit. They got to get A.J. Brown going and Devontae Smith going. They have the personnel, they have the players. I think they just need to dial it up a little bit more and allow Jalen Hurts to actually have those opportunities, because so far haven't really done so. I'm not panicking on the Eagles. They're at my number 4 for a reason. I just personally feel right now there's other teams out there that if they were to face the Philadelphia Eagles, I would probably bet money on them. Still, Philadelphia has top-end talent. They are 100% Super Bowl contenders. I'm just a little bit worried about this passing attack. We'll see if they can get it going against a couple of teams here in the future. Moving to number 3, I have the Green Bay Packers. Now, you can make the argument that through 2 weeks, the Green Bay Packers have been the best team in the entire NFL. And frankly, I did consider putting them number 1. Ultimately, though, I don't think they have a win that stacks up to our 2 top contending teams, which we'll talk about here in a little bit with the game that those 2 teams played. You probably know who I'm talking about. But still, the Packers have handled their business. They beat up on the Detroit Lions and they beat up on the Washington Commanders. They have dominated 2 very good NFC teams. Defensively, they do look legit. They look incredible in the front 7, and they have some secondary players that are playing at a very high level right now. We'll see if they can keep it up, but Keyshawn Nixon looks really good right now. And on the offensive end, Tucker Kraft is really gotten going. Josh Jacobs is good. The offensive line is going to get healthier and even better. Jordan Love is playing excellent football. This Packers team has a chance to, at some point, be my number 1 team if they can keep this up. Next week, they have an easy matchup versus the Cleveland Browns, and I'm kind of interested to see if they can really put a beat down on the Browns, because if they can, this team might be pretty legit. Moving to number 2, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Now, yes, I know the Ravens are 1-1, and I know their only victory is a 40-17 victory versus the Cleveland Browns. But man, let's keep it a buck. They probably should have beat the Buffalo Bills in week 1. I know they did not win. I get it. But Derrick Henry almost never fumbles, and they fumble the football, and they got a little bit conservative late. It happens, but they still should have probably won the game. They had an absolute classic versus the Buffalo Bills, and I don't want to punish them too hard for it. They were my number 1 team heading into the season. I think they are the most complete team in the entire NFL from top to bottom. The only concern for them is, can they compete in the playoffs? Like, you know, we've seen this team be really good in years past, but they struggle in the playoffs. They're my number 2. You could make the case for the Packers, though. I will 100% give you that. But lastly, at number 1, I have the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, they of course had that comeback victory over the Baltimore Ravens, so you have to respect the head-to-head, and they dominated the New York Jets quite comfortably. They have an offense that can absolutely go in so many different ways. They can be a heavy rushing attack with Josh Allen and James Cook and rely on the offensive line, or they can have Josh Allen go Superman and do all these crazy things with his legs and with his arm. And defensively, when they get fully healthy, I think this defensive line is going to be pretty darn good. It's just going to be, can the secondary keep up? Not a big fan of their safeties. I think there's some weak holes there. Maybe they make a move for like a Justin Simmons. I think it's still on the table there, but they have some guys for sure. This Bills team is absolutely ready to go. But you let me know in the comment section below, what do you agree with my power rankings and what do you disagree with? Let me know in the comment section below.